Hello, friends and listeners, party people. Welcome back to an episode of Party XP. I'm your host, Lakan, and joining me is Jeff. Say hi, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
How you been doing, my guy?
I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just talked about it, but we are weaning the baby off of the night bottle entirely.
And getting him onto steaks now, basically,
Yes,
right?
yes, of course.
Progression?
No, yeah, so, I mean, obviously he's been eating solid food for a while now,
Yeah.
but just as a way to get him to fall asleep, we've been doing the whole milk at night, and we are now trying to get him to not do that because it's bad for his teeth.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does he have a full row of teeth already in, or not
Just
yet?
about.
Oh,
He's
damn,
just
there we
missing
go.
the last couple of teeth, and yeah, he'll have them all. So it's kind of at that point where we have to not let him have anything after we brush his teeth at night. So yeah, we're working on that. And then the next fun part is getting him off the pacifier.
Oh, yeah.
So I won't be sleeping until like next November.
He's mobile now. I remember you saying before, last time we were talking about it, right? He's mobile. He's got full teeth. He's eating stuff. He's and like he's able to start doing a bunch of things, right? I haven't seen little man since like I don't know, maybe like earlier this year when it swung by.
Yeah, it's hard with our living arrangement and basically like all the things we have to do to get him out the door. So like hopefully once we move this spring, it'll be easier to have more people around.
Okay.
But for now, yeah, it's gonna be tough.
Well, looking forward to seeing him hopefully a little bit more when things get settled down. Let me know if you ever need help, by the way, because I'll be around. I can always try to help you out if I can.
I also figure like a bunch of single guys don't want to hang out with a guy and his infant. So like,
I mean, if we're just gonna be there vibing with a little man, I think that'd be kind of funny. You know what I mean?
I guess,
Get a
yeah,
little
but
bit
I just
flavor-
feel like it's
flavor
not
of all the
terribly,
chaos of the uncles.
yeah, it's not terribly interesting, for just guys that aren't family guys to, I mean, a family guy,
Okay.
guys that aren't like family or at least in like a committed relationship to be around like a family,
Yeah,
like
but
it's
I mean,
kind of
like, with a bunch of us, we've all got a bunch of like nieces and nephews. So we all have no problem being around like kids. You know what I mean? We like being the fun uncle. You know what I mean? In our respective families.
right.
So yeah, like I think like give us a little bit of credit here. You know, we're your friends, fam. Like just like we'll come by, we'll play with a little man. You know what I mean? Because like especially around like that again like that early part of their life, it's like. We can't do anything too terrible. Like,
Right.
He's like remember the terrible things that we all say and do. So as long as we don't impart any
Here's
terrible
hoping.
habits, we're good.
Correct.
But we'll I would like to see a little guy again because I remember last time I came through and I held him. He was chill for a little bit, and then he started crying like a couple minutes in. And I was like, okay, we're chilling but not chilling. You know what I mean? It was like in that off that like. Just a little bit off the comfortable middle ground where I can kind of hang out with them. You know what I mean?
Correct.
But
Yeah.
like he calmed down eventually. But I just remember being like, okay, like I just let me love you. Just let me love you, little man. Just come here. Let me be Tito. But yeah,
For sure.
That's cool. Yeah, man. I know it's been very busy on your end, and I've been kind of like, I'm finally on my wind down for the year. Like I'm finally done with all my wedding gigs. All the weddings that I'm involved in, like I was a groomsman for my friend's wedding a couple weeks ago. Conventions are done, right? I think we mentioned New York Comic Con during the previous recording, or maybe 2 recordings ago. But yeah, I'm basically done. This is now my wind down for the year, so I'm in the relaxed part of my year cycle here.
8 weeks left in the year. Yeah.
Yeah,
about time.
finally. Yeah, finally downtime. Even then, it's still busy. Obviously we're still working and doing all our regular stuff. So, but yeah, good. Again, we haven't had a chat in a little bit. We've been again very busy on our end.
Yeah,
So
for sure. And my parents also were in Florida for the past couple of weeks. So like, trying to keep tabs on them and where they are and all of that has also been a thing. So they're back now, thankfully. So that's good. But
okay, were they down there during like the craziness of the dual hurricane?
no, they can't. They went right after.
Oh, okay, good. I just want to make sure that they were safe. And everything.
No,
And
yeah,
you-
no.
I know you said they were out of town. I just don't know where they were.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
So
they went on
that's
their
good- that's
big.
good to know.
Yeah, they went on like their big, like the biggest road trip they've ever been on.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, are you guys gonna be okay with this? Because they're not built for this.
Yeah. I get you. Oh, that's cool. That's good to hear that they had a nice little trip there for themselves. That's good. Yeah. So I want to do something. I may have alluded to this. No, I definitely alluded to this in a previous episode. I think it was during one of the solo episodes where I wanted to talk about, I guess, like the spiritual successor games. I guess I don't know if that's a term I specifically use, but games that are like clones or homages to other game series, right? That don't actually have the original game character in them anymore, but the gameplay is clearly inspired by that type of gameplay, right? And I wanted to go through a couple where it's like some series where the games stopped making games of, I don't want to throw too much shade here, but like of acceptable quality, quote unquote acceptable quality, right? Like, so, like the series is taking a turn, or the series went in a weird direction, and they just haven't been able to find their stride again. You know what I mean? After a couple misses. And again, like how people decide what is or isn't a good game within the series is all personal preference. But I think like the general consensus between a lot of people is kind of like the energy of the fan base is definitely there, at least in some of the ones that I'm going to be mentioning on my side. I'm sure there's plenty of like YouTube video essays about this kind of topic, but I kind of wanted us to throw out our specific recommendations, anything that we've either tried out or we've like looked into or we are considering pulling the trigger on ourselves. I guess I'll start it off here on my end to kind of help clarify exactly what I mean if I just threw out a bunch of word salad and didn't actually get anything across. The Sonic the Hedgehog series. I am a fan of the OG 2D titles, right? The original Sonic trilogy on Sega Genesis. A couple of the ones on the Game Boy Advance was Sonic Advance 1, 2, and 3. The Sonic Rush was really good, right?
Yes, agreed.
And Sonic Adventure has got there's a spot in my heart for it. You know what I mean? But
as the best Sonic games ever made, right?
Yeah.
They're the only Sonic games with butt rock, so like I don't know how they're not the best.
I mean, to be fair, like all the Sonic 3D games have basically every Sonic game has had banger soundtracks. To be fair,
correct.
Even the bad games, like they've had good. The soundtracks themselves have been very good.
Yeah. Even Sonic 06 has some good tracks.
Sonic 06, Sonic Forces had some really good songs in there. Yeah. Sonic Heroes, but again, a couple of it's a classic series. There's a bunch of solid titles and enough bad or mid titles, right? If we're gonna be honest with ourselves, right? So I've got a couple series here, or a couple recommendations here that I would recommend for people to look into. Some that I have played, some that I have not played, some that I have been like looking into, or I've at least demoed them, and I'm like, oh, this scratches that kind of itch that I've been looking for. And again, like Sonic has had a nice little turnaround recently because they've had the recent Sonic 3D game. Which I forgot the name of.
Yeah, already. I think it's like what was it? Sonic Horizon, Sonic. What
the hell was it called? It wasn't
Horizons,
bad.
Isn't it?
It wasn't bad. It's like the 3D like open zone game that they called it, right? That one, Sonic Generations. They had Sonic Generations. Was it Sonic's X Shadow Generations come out recently too? Sonic Superstar, I think it was called, or Sonic Megastar, whatever the recent one as well too for the 2D Sonic games. So they've had a
Frontiers.
Frontiers. There we go. Thank you. I was blanking on it pretty hard too. But they've had a couple decent games come out recently. So like I'm not gonna just completely dog on the series, right? But they've had a lot of misses though. Like at least if we're gonna go back a little bit, right? Like, Sonic Colors was was okay.
That was like the bright spot in that era of Sonic.
Yeah, that was a real rough, dark time for them, right? The Sonic 06, Sonic Heroes. I kind of have like a soft spot for. I like Sonic Heroes. I know it's not everyone's favorite game. I don't know people that did not like that game, but I liked it. Sonic, what was it? Sonic of the Seven Rings.
Yeah.
Was that was the Wii one, right?
There was like a period where they only had Wii games. They weren't on anything else. Yeah,
they were rough. Sonic Forces was genuinely bad. Again, good music, but the game itself was just not good.
Mm-hmm.
Retro / older catalog, the middle catalog they kind of lost their way, and they're kind of had a couple good hits recently. So, but if you kind of missing that OG 2D, and even I've got some 3D stuff here to recommend as well too. But my first recommendation would be Freedom Planet 1 and 2. I've definitely recommended this on or mentioned it on a previous episode at some point. Again, either during me throwing out the idea for this episode, or you and I have had a discussion about this before. But this is developed by American game designer Sabrina Di Duro for her studio Gravity Trail. You play as one of 3 anthropomorphic animal protags, so very very Sonic inspired, right? Lilac the Dragon Girl, Carol the Wildcat, and Milla the Basset Hound. Rooted in OG Sonic gameplay with the 2D fast run, run right, run left platforming kind of thing, right? But they did get rid of the ring based health system where it's either you're killable or you're not. I don't like that system. I know a lot of people are kind of used to it, but they gave you a health bar. You could refill it by collecting red leaves dropped by enemies or scattered throughout the level. So it's kind of like the ring system, but it's more of like not forgiving because the ring system itself is forgiving, right? Because as long as you have one, you're good to go. This one, there's a little more play. You have to obviously be a little more careful. There is combat in this one where they can throw out attacks instead of jumping on enemies to deal damage. And they have like different like directional attacks too. I want to say the closest reference to this one would be giving homage to would be Sonic Rush. That's my personal opinion on this one.
Okay.
Because Sonic Rush has a lot of that kind of flair to them, kind of spinning in 3D, but the gameplay is still primarily 2D, right?
Got it. Yeah.
Everyone else has like a special ability as well too in this game, alongside having like kind of directional based attacks, and so like example is like Lilac can like uses her hair as like a whip, or like kind of like she a little bit Shantae-esque kind of thing, right? Like a rising uppercut, like a shoryuken, a crouching kick, and then like a dive kick from midair, and then she could also jump and spin in the air, a la Crash Bandicoot-ish a little bit, with a slight bit of a hover. That kind of makes her like a moving hitbox, you know what I mean? And then Carol can do like a claw swipe and throws out like punches and kind of dive out of rolls and stuff like that. So I guess kind of a little bit like Knuckles, right? Where you get like a lot of horizontal movement with her abilities. Milla's the weird one of the group where she can like summon an energy cube which she can kind of throw as a projectile, and then she can also put like a shield to reflect projectiles, and she has like a slight hover built in. So even though they all have their individual different characteristics and abilities, it still has the base gameplay of that OG like Genesis style 16-bit Sonic game. In my opinion, this feels like a way that 2D Sonic games specifically could have gone, right? Implementing that classic 2D platformer gameplay with some actual combat, like actually having them throw out attacks instead of only jumping on enemies to do damage. And again, like the combat's pretty well integrated. Like it does feel very natural in the way that they use it in this type of game. And again, you still get that sense of speed. And again, at first glance, it looks like a clone, but then you get get really into the gameplay, and it really does separate itself in a good way from the Sonic games, which it clearly takes inspiration from. Demos are available for both 1 and 2, which is also good. So listeners, if you want to just try them, go for it, and then commit to it if you actually like the gameplay of them or not. Do you want me to do the next game I recommend from this within the Sonic universe here, or do you want to do one?
You're on a roll.
Okay, cool. I've definitely mentioned this one before. Penny's Big Breakaway. Developed by Evening Star, the studio founded by the developers of Sonic Mania. So what had happened was their team was initially going to be tasked with making a new Sonic game. That fell through, and it went to a different studio. So they ended up spinning off and making their own studio after they were essentially acquired by Sonic Team, right? If I remember correctly, that's how it worked. A little bit of a stretch because it's not traditionally Sonic gameplay, but it definitely has a couple glimpses of it, right? Or hints of it, where imagine like a 3D Sonic Rush. That's what I would recommend for this. I kind of, because remember Sonic Rush had like that trick system that also give you points.
Yes.
Yeah, so this one, you play as Penny, who utilizes a sentient yo-yo to platform, swing, glide, and traverse multiple 3D levels, right? It's not as fast as like a 3D Sonic game, but it has like 3D Sonic plus Chameleon Twist plus Tony Hawk mixed into one game. So the Tony Hawk is like a subsystem within the game where you do tricks, like yo-yo tricks to traverse and stuff like that. Like you use the yo-yo to grab on to poles and swing yourself up and bounce around and ride the yo-yo, like run on the yo-yo like a barrel, like from Donkey Kong, to traverse. And you get points and combos and multipliers doing the tricks to navigate around the levels, basically. So there's a bit of like kind of all those mixed together, like Tony Hawk or Jet Set, I guess, right? A very distinct game, very cool aesthetically that I like it anyway. And there's a demo available as well for this one. Again, it's from the team that made Sonic Mania. That's kind of like why I'm kind of sliding into this, even though it can kind of fit into a couple other niches that it feels kind of similar to. But yeah,
You
this
know
is
what else
definitely one
it's
that I
similar to? I don't mean to cut
highly
you off.
recommend it. Yeah, absolutely.
It's similar to Yo Noid.
God damn it.
It's basically Yo Noid.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. I think you definitely mentioned this before too.
Right, yeah. It's Yo Noid, and then the fan Yo Noid, that's like a Yo Noid 2, that's like a 3D platformer with the yo-yo.
Yeah.
Definitely based on that too. Yo
Also,
Noid
again,
is sick, by the way. Both of those, the original Yo Noid is so bad it's good. The second Yo Noid, the fan game, is so good it's good.
yeah, genuinely a good game.
Genuinely
I
a good
remember,
game,
yeah.
and you should definitely give it a shot. It's free on itch.io. If you like yo-yo based platformers. Anyway,
And-
continue, please.
Yeah, and also a demo available for this game. So again, try it out if you're kind of like mixed on playing a game that's like was from Sonic team, but not really. You know what I mean? And this is the last recommendation that I've got is probably the most accurate to a Sonic game, at least accurate. I guess is not we were to say. It's another take on it, but it definitely has a lot, and probably the closest in terms of like how they've done multiple games in the series. Spark the Electric Jester 1, 2, and 3. This is basically all solo developed by Felipe Daniluz. So he's basically a solo dev who used his own unofficial 3D Sonic the Hedgehog engine to make 2 and 3. And he created many Sonic fan games prior to the Spark the Electric Jester series. So, elements of Sonic, the fast side-scroller gameplay with emphasis on speed, mixed with elements of Kirby games by acquiring different powers. So again, similar to Freedom Planet, where you have like a basic attacks while you're running around the world and actually just playing the regular platform without going fast. You can get different powers, and they also change how you can try to traverse the levels basically. You run fast, you dash, you attack, and get through some pretty expansive levels. Lots of mobility options. Like one of the power ups is you get like a green crossbow-esque kind of weapon, and if you jump in the air and you shoot it downwards, you get like a little bit of boost in the air. So, and you shoot it multiple times, it kind of gives you like a bit of like a glide, right? And then, one gives you like a dashing, slashing attack, so it gives you a little bit of forward momentum on top of it while you're running. Kind of helps you cover gaps a little bit more. And then they made, again, as I said before, they made 3 of these. 2 is you play as the robot counterpart, so you get your Metal Sonic kind of fix here. So again, you're playing as Spark in the first one, you're playing as Fark in the second one. And heavily inspired by Sonic Adventure. You get the edgy character design and everything. You have homing attacks, air dashes, the gravity-defying running sections where you kind of run on the walls and upside down. You know what I mean, like the big barrel sections, basically. Yeah, and again, you also get a little bit of like hack and slash gameplay here. So kind of like a mix of that, like a little bit of Sonic Heroes-y kind of parts, because again, you're still collecting the powers, but now you're playing in 3D. And then Spark 3 I haven't played this one yet. I did play 1 and 2 a little bit. This one came out relatively recently. This one is a more refined version of Spark 2, basically. There's even like wall running, like not like the typical gravity-defying sections of the high speed wall running, but like in certain areas to traverse and navigate a little bit, you can do a little bit of wall running to to move around these smaller areas, and then full on like rail grinding sections.
Mm-hmm.
This is like a more fleshed out, more refined version of Spark 2, and this one looks really, really good, and it has been kind of on my watch list now for a little while, and I'm like really just kind of waiting for like the right time to pull the trigger on this thing. Hopefully it goes on sale during the holiday season. That's what I'm hoping for.
Right.
But this one is very, very well received, because it is just basically good Sonic Adventure. Like not in good as in the way we said it before, but it's like it's good as in it's more refined and it's less janky. You know what I mean? Even though we kind of love and enjoy the jank of Sonic Adventure 2, or Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, and all that other stuff. This is like a very and again, made by a solo dev. It's just very, very well made and fine tuned.
I was
gonna
say,
the Electric Jester 3 has a demo.
What are you talking about? Less janky being better? I was like, hold on a second.
Look, as much as we like that jank, obviously I have issues with, which most people have issues with, the camera, right?
That
falling
is
to the
true.
floor sometimes, stuff like that. This game, again, surprisingly plays pretty nicely, even though it is his own version that he eventually developed, his own version of the 3D Sonic the Hedgehog engine. Like, he made his own, essentially.
Right.
This has a demo, and this one I heavily urge people to try this one out, because, again, like, I haven't had that itch scratched from Sonic Adventure or to Battle or whatever, with any version of the Sonic Adventure games, since I played the demo for this one. Like, this is like the closest thing I've got to like a modernized version of that high adrenaline gameplay. Not 06, not Forces, not like, again, like Frontiers is fine, but it's different, right?
Right.
Craving that is for a Sonic the Hedgehog game, and you're not getting it from the current products that are currently out from Sonic Team. Check these out.
For sure. I wish I had more games like that to talk about, because the games that I have that like I first thought of, the ones that I have played outside of one that I can give people, are either kind of dead. Either people have probably already played them by now, or they're not out yet, right?
Okay.
So the first one on my list, of course, is Bloodstained. We've talked about how much I love the Metroidvania, the Castlevania games. Bloodstained is an homage, a love letter to those games. It is spectacular. It is something that you have to play as a Castlevania fan. But I'm sure if you love it, you've already played it, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of unfortunate about that. The other one that's on my list that I had a chance to play, but I haven't had a chance to own yet. A friend of mine had it on his Steam Deck, so I was like, "Hey, can I give this a spin for 15 minutes or so?" Was Radiant Silvergun, which is the Ikaruga love letter, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So I did have a chance to play that. If you're unfamiliar, Ikaruga was like a Dreamcast era shoot 'em up game that had some unique mechanics. Like, you would flip between sort of like a light attribute and a dark attribute, and enemies would fire off attacks and would explode the corresponding attribute based on what they were. And if you were like as the light attribute and you got hit by a dark attribute, you would blow up. But if you were a dark attribute, you would absorb the power and be able to use your special attacks. So it was pretty, kind of bare bones. It was definitely, obviously it was an arcade shooter made for arcade, so there wasn't that much depth to it, but Radiant Silvergun kind of took that to the next level. They introduced more weapons, they introduced more levels. Obviously it was made for a home console environment, right? So you're not going to have the same pitfalls that a true arcade game would have. So that's kind of like, again, kind of like a positive, kind of a negative. If you're really into that whole, arcade shooter, that whole arcade experience, yeah, like you're still going to get it. It's just a lot of the things that you would normally see in an arcade game aren't quite there. But it's still a blast. I still highly recommend it. The other one that isn't out yet that I've been harping on and being like, hey, support this. If you love those old N64 wrestling games, Ultra Pro Wrestling is still in development. The devs are great guys. Still no release date, but it's looking like basically the game that we all want it to be, right? So for the uninitiated, Ultra Pro Wrestling is one of those. It's made in the vein of those Aki wrestling games: WWF No Mercy, WrestleMania 2000, WCW Revenge, WCW World Tour, and then their Japanese equivalents of, I think it's the Virtual Pro Wrestling series. And yeah, so it's a fully, the character customization is definitely there, so that obviously you can create real wrestlers in the game. It does have like a story mode. It does have characters created for the game. You can tell there's a lot of love and dedication put into this game. It's just got to come out. So if you can, definitely support it on Patreon. It's something that I want to do pretty soon here, now that everything's kind of hopefully getting back to normal for me. I do want to be involved in this. This is definitely a game that I want to support, because I want another Aki wrestling game. It's been far too long for a game of this style to be out. I miss them. obviously they are, they're parts of my gaming history growing up. So like, obviously for the opportunity to play a modernized version of these games is something that's interesting to me. So it's something that I implore people, if you like those Aki wrestling games, go out, Ultra Pro Wrestling, go find the devs, go find the game on social media, support it if you can. Throw a couple bucks towards the Patreon. Let's get this game out. Let's get this game a release date. Let's play. Let's get this game out. Basically, is what I'm dying for here, because I want to play it, and it looks pretty sweet. So that's, I figured we'd talk about a few other games that I had on the list that I haven't had the pleasure or lack thereof to play, but those are some games that I wanted to highlight just because they are games that were on my radar for a while. Oh, the other one is Fighting EX Layer, which is unfortunately not, I don't think, like alive anymore. But that was the game developed by Arika, the people that made the Street Fighter EX games.
Okay.
And so what it is it's basically a remake of the Street Fighter EX games, those those 2D fighting games with 3D looks and somewhat mechanics.
Yeah.
But just without the Street Fighter characters. It's just all of their original characters into the game. There was supposed to be an update that was coming out eventually. We never got it. But it's a cool game. I don't know how many people are still playing it, but it is a really cool game, and it's just unfortunate that it kind of seemed to fall by the wayside. But it's again one of those games, those sort of mid-2000s fighting games that were there, that had a presence, and then just kind of fell off the planet, kind of like your Bloody Roars, your Battle Arena Toshindens, your trying to think what else, but you know what I mean, like those fighting games that you'll see and they were all over the place and you remember them fondly, and then they just haven't had a new release in 20 years. This is one of those. So I'll never know. You never know if we're going to get another one. I don't know what Arika's up to. Last I heard, they were working with SNK, so it might not be possible for them to put out another Fighting EX Layer game, but we'll see, right? Yeah. But it is on my radar. There is a free version at least there's a free version on Switch that you can give a shot if you want to. And you can, tinker around with that. The combo mechanics and like the gameplay system is a lot of fun just to knock around in. So, give it a shot, I would say. But that's really the ode successor games that I had. I am sure we're going to talk about a few others that may have missed the mark or not. I don't know. I don't know what you have planned, actually. So
well, I'm gonna hop in on for one of the ones you talked about. At least one of the genres, like the Castlevania style games. Gestalt, Steam, and Cinder came out recently. I went over the summer.
Okay.
So it's it's, from my understanding, it's a light Metroidvania, right? It's like not crazy heavy on exploration, but it has like a mix of that like Metroidvania speed, right? Because the Metroid games themselves are faster than the Castlevania games are.
Correct.
Right? So you have like the wall jumping and stuff like that, but then it's mostly based on melee combat. So, and you kind of tell by the animation style, it kind of has, even though it has that kind of like faster-ish gameplay, it's still mostly focused on like the grounded sword combat for this game. Some dashes are involved as well too, but the bosses definitely look like they're more inspired by Castlevania enemies than they are Metroid enemies.
Sounds like Symphony of the Night.
Yeah. With kind of the big fire, is like you have to be in the right spot to avoid the fire spire that comes out of the ground, kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like that, instead of being more of like a semi-bullety, dodgy kind of thing, right? Which is more like Metroidvania style, I guess. The style is very like steampunky. It's kind of in the name, Steam and Cinder. But yeah, like this is kind of like another game that like came out recently. Pretty good reviews overall. Again, kind of scratches that itch of that like 2D platforming Castlevania style gameplay. So there's another recommendation that I could throw out there for you.
Very cool.
Yeah, and there's another like 2-player one. I think we talked about forever ago. I forgot the name of it, unfortunately, but it's like a 2D Castlevania game. If it comes to me, I'll say it randomly, but it was definitely in one of the. I think I talked about it in like one of the previous PAX episodes. Yeah, but that's cool. Absolutely, I get you. Like I would like to see another Bloody Roar game.
Right?
Yeah, those games are really fun, and like even though like because like they were out during a time when I didn't really understand. Well, I played a lot of 3D fighting games, so I kind of understood 3D fighting games better at the time, right? But the thing is, like, it had a nice spin on like essentially like the super, right? Because essentially it was the transform mode, right? That was kind of what changed up the gameplay from there. Essentially, everyone got a secondary stance. You know, everyone's speed and their damage kind of jumped up a little bit. And it was really cool, like matchup wise, like how deep that kind of level of combat could go. What was the last Bloody Roar game? Like Bloody Roar 4
Was one on the GameCube.
Okay, so that was the fourth one, I'm assuming. Then a 1-2 came out on the PS1. One came out on PS2 / GameCube.
No, Bloody Roar 4 was the last one in 2003. It was on the PlayStation 2. We had Bloody Roar Extreme and Primal Fury on the GameCube and the Xbox, and then the PS2 got Bloody Roar 4.
Okay, cool.
The one that I remember the most was I remember the first one. The second one was the one that I played the most. Bloody Roar 2.
Same.
That was on the PlayStation 1.
That was on PlayStation 1, and I remember there was a demo for that one from the Pizza Hut game disc.
Oh,
do you remember that one?
Yes, sir.
That one had Cool Borders 2, Crash Bandicoot 2, Bloody Roar 2. That was an awesome demo disc. And that was like my first taste of Bloody Roar. And then once I like learned what this game was, West Coast Video or Blockbuster or whatever where we would go to, I think at this point the Path Market closed. So
Yo, R.I.P. to the Pathmark.
And by the time that was out, the Pathmark was like at least the game section within the Pathmark was no longer around, so we had to rent them for like the actual dedicated video game / movie rental stores basically. But yeah, Bloody Roar 2 was my shit, bro. I love that game. That was very, very fun. I spent as much time playing that as I did Tekken. I want to say I'm probably in that same range for both of those games. Unfortunately, especially back when we were younger, kind of hard to find a community for these games because, still kind of, early internet. I'm not allowed to go out and do stuff like that as a kid.
Right. And we weren't at a point yet where you had a place where you could bring a console to play games for the most part. And if your local scene didn't have an arcade cab of it, it was tough, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know Menlo didn't have a cabinet of this. At least I don't think it did.
I don't think it did.
So the only way to play this was to play it against the computer or if you had people over. But then a lot of the time we just ended up playing Street Fighter or whatever else anyway. So like we never really got to Bloody Roar unless it was like we were there for a while.
And we were like,
I don't think I ever played it against you guys ever.
Probably not. I definitely played against like Gabe.
Right.
And my cousins a lot, right? Who would crash for the summer or whatever.
Right.
But I don't think you and I even got into this game because by the time we started really hanging out at each other's places, we kind of like cemented ourselves in. Oh, I'm a Tekken player. You're a Street Fighter, King of Fighters player, basically.
Right.
So we kind of like had our own kind of niches going on at that point. And Bloody Roar had most likely been kicked aside basically. Just so sad, man. That was a cool series.
It was, man. It was, and a lot of those fighting games just kind of fell by the wayside, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely.
And which sucks, but like, it is what it is. Hopefully, as more and more of these people that fell in love with these games start to become game developers and things like that, maybe we'll get a shot. But who knows? It would be fun to see a Bloody Roar spiritual successor, right? A game where basically you have a human mode, you have like a transformation mode, even if it doesn't even have to be animals. It could be anything. It could be robots. It could be, I don't know.
Demons. Like, it could be like a devil Jin type of thing.
Right,
you know what I mean?
exactly.
Like that.
Yeah, it could be whatever.
But built it for every character.
Right, and that's all we need, and I think that would be pretty sick.
And
Put it in
surprisingly,
like
that
a
game didn't get like attached to the furry fandom either. Like surprisingly, like I've definitely brought that game up before, and people have been like, "Oh yeah, I remember that game," and it was never denigrated. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people kind of initially have that reaction to the furry kind of stuff, like, because you turn into animals. I was
I'm
kind of surprised
sure it's
by it.
there.
I'm sure it's there.
You just don't know it because you're not a furry that I know of.
No, I'm not. But I mean, again, not that
That's where you draw the line.
Well, I'm not. I mean, I'm not a furry. That's all it is. They can do whatever they want. I don't care.
Yeah.
But it was funny because more just like the fact that like people would be like, "Oh shit!" It was more of like an excitement of like, "I remember that game." Like I remember because they all got that same Pizza Hut demo disc. That's why I think it's like a pure nostalgia thing. It's like, "Oh shit! I absolutely remember that. That game was awesome." You know,
we got to do that. That's one we should do. Is like demo disc.
Just find the good ones and just gush about those. I mean,
just talk about your favorite demo discs.
The first one was the Tony Hawk one. That's why. That one was fucking dope. That was it. That's all I needed at the fucking warehouse level.
Yep. I remember it was the official like Sony series, and it had the one that I remember. I'm pretty sure it had either Tony Hawk 1 or 2. That's the one that had Legend of Legaia on it. But it was like the souped up Legend of Legaia where you got the transformations in the first area. It wasn't the 2-disc fucking game that led you on and teased you forever. Son of a bitch. There were a few other fun games there too.
Yeah. We should probably do that for a future episode. I think
we
find the best demo discs that were out there, because there were definitely a bunch of gems in like the Game Informer, like and like the kind of stuff. You know what I mean? There's definitely some of those in there.
I'm pretty sure I have at least one. I'm pretty sure I have that Tony Hawk demo disc around somewhere. I don't know if it's at.
I
if it's
think
here.
Gabe got it in Washington and he shipped it over to me. I'm pretty sure I have it.
Okay. I'm pretty sure either I would have it here with me because I have all my PS1 stuff here because I can play it on my PC, or it's somewhere in my parents' house. But I know that I know I still have it. It's about having other ones. If you're listening to this and you have demo discs, contact us.
Please.
I will take your demo disc and I will play it on YouTube. I promise. I have time now. Ish.
Yeah, like absolutely. That's probably going to be a future episode. I think that'll be a fun conversation. Okay, so next series that I've got that I want to talk about, Mega Man.
I have this on my list.
Okay, cool. So we'll definitely hop in after my first one. You can hop in if you want to do that. So classic 2D platformer, right? We love this. I love this series. Mega Man 2 is still one of my favorite games of ever. Mega Man 2, Mega Man 3, known for their difficulty, right? Variety of games, following the original series, Mega Man X series, the Mega Man Legends series, which I love. I love and there, unfortunately, there's nothing that I've experienced that is similar to that one. The Mega Man Battle Network series, which I did enjoy the early part of that series. Some people say it got better as it went on. I started to not like them as it went on.
Really?
Apparently that's a controversial take. One of my coworkers got very upset with me when I said that. But like a pretty wide swath of games here, right? And styles of it. But I've got 3.5 full recommendations here for these ones. The first one I've definitely mentioned before, Rosenkreuz Stilett.
Mm-hmm.
That was developed by now defunct dev studio ERKA ES, ERKA:ES. I don't know how to pronounce that. And Dark Squid Media, and published by Playism. It is a classic NES style Mega Man game with some Toho inspirations for the boss fights. It is I say the right amount of difficulty, whereas in it's bullshit. But that's me, because I love bullshit difficulty Mega Man games.
Right.
Like I liked 9. I wasn't a huge fan of 10. I felt like 10 was kind of a bit of a little bit of a letdown for me personally. And then 11 I kind of enjoyed. But the music is like a mix of like Mega Man and Castlevania, because it has this like, you play as a bunch of little chibi anime girls.
Mm-hmm.
They have the slide from Mega Man 3. They have like the big laser dodging sections from like all of the Mega Mans basically. Like, where you kind of drop down the right hole, slide across, drop down to the next level kind of thing, next screen. Definitely a lot of like early 2000s Flash game energy for this game. Again, it's an indie / doujin developer, right? So there's lot. No, doujin is in the actual term for doujin as in independent,
okay,
not official. Like doujin is in like fan work. Because this is a Japanese studio. It has it has the story's there if you want it. If not, if you want gameplay, just ignore the story. It's all there. Definitely not as pretty or as visually sharp as the Mega Man games, right? The Mega Man games have a very distinct look to all the characters, all the levels, right? All the sprite work is immaculate, right? In all the Mega Man games. This one again has a little bit of like early 2000s kind of like rough, little bit rough around the edges, but still a fantastic gameplay loop. Non-linear bosses, you get the power-ups, find out the weakness through trial and error. Again, the game is legitimately difficult. Too difficult? Maybe. Again, I'd like to suffer.
Right.
And just get good at Mega Man games. Honestly, I need to pick up this game, and if I remember correctly, this game also did not have save states. It had the codes.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was, again, if you want to beat this game, you don't save, and you don't write that code down somewhere that saves what your gameplay has been so far.
Old school suffering.
Yeah, start over. And it has definitely happened to me before. I do have no idea where the sheets are that I have the codes of where I was currently in the game.
I'm sure the internet has them.
Yeah, I'm sure. Unfortunately, no demo for this game. Again, the studio is now defunct. At least the main studio that was developing it. But
can you still buy the game?
Yes, the game's still available on Steam. I believe I haven't checked it in a while because obviously I already have it in my library.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see, Rosenkreuz. So there is 2 versions of the game. The base version is $10. The next one is Rosenkreuz Stilett. Freudenstachel. This one is a sequel, from my understanding.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they made 2, and it's just again same kind of thing where it's just insanely difficult, right? Again, more power ups kind of thing, and again, it just kind of like right in that like line of like, oh, I loved just suffering through OG Mega Man games. Here you go.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? This is kind of like right in there. Again, also looks very. There's some referential stuff in the second one, where like there's like a level that looks like Mario 1,
nice.
like once
like 1-1.
1-1 exactly. There's like a big tree with a face on it, Wispy Woods inspired, obviously. But the game itself is just strictly Mega Man, basically.
Word.
With some references thrown in with there. There's even like do you remember the boot thing from was that Super Mario World?
The boot,
SAS.
yeah, the green boot. It's
right?
from I think the third one, the third Mario game.
Was it third? Yeah, third one. Okay, yeah. So Super Mario 3. Yeah, it's in this game too.
Nice.
Like in the sequel, it is again very like referential. Has some nods to some classic games of the NES games, basically. Yeah, no, just really fun. Again, has that like same kind of like dark fantasy horror anime-ish kind of like Castlevania-ish, you know what I mean? If you want to keep it simple that way. Big old demons, stuff like that kind of thing,
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so there's 2 of them. Again, unfortunately, no demos for either one of them. But again, 10 and $14 a pop. So there's that too. They are available out there for you. Yeah, you want to go ahead and toss, because you said you have a Mega Man recommendation, right? Which one do you want to toss in there?
I figured we were going to touch on Mighty Number 9 at some point.
Oof, okay, we have to.
No, we don't. But I figured,
I feel like we should talk about it a little bit.
Right, talk about the ones that didn't pan out, and to me, that's kind of like the example of when spiritual successors go wrong.
Yeah,
because it's everything about the games that you love, but there's none of that in the game.
None of the soul is there.
Right.
That's basically what it is, right? So Mighty Number 9 was. I remember it had a lot of hype around it because they were like, oh, the original quote-unquote creator of Mega Man was involved. And it wasn't, right? If I remember correctly, it was like one of the guys who worked on like... I guess he was technically in development team, but he was not like the guy who made the Mega Man games.
Right.
I forgot the specifics of the story. I don't know if you have them in your notes or whatever. But it... Do you remember that Mega Man game that was on the PSP where you had Chibi Mega Man with the big old head?
Oh, yeah.
And that was just a remake, basically, of Mega Man 1, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So it looked like that, where it had that kind of 3D aesthetic to it, right? It was still a 2D side-scroller, right? But it had that 3D rendering, and it was like the dash was the big thing for that game, right? That was the big gimmick for Mighty Number 9.
Right. Now, I have to tell you, I didn't play it.
Okay.
I just figured we should talk about it because we were talking about spiritual successors, and I feel like there are 2 major spiritual successors out there
Mm-hmm.
One good, one bad. We talked about Bloodstained. Everybody's talked about Bloodstained. You've probably played it at this point. And then on the opposite side of the coin, there's Mighty Number 9.
Yeah.
And probably also Ukulele. Again, one that
yeah.
kind of missed the mark just
Yeah.
because you talk about soul. And
It was closer than Mighty Number 9.
I think you're
I would
right.
say. The second ukulele was pretty good. Like the
Was it?
2.5D ukulele game, pretty solid.
Okay.
I actually enjoyed that one a lot. I remember I got that for like on sale on the Switch, and I really enjoyed it. But ukulele itself, yeah, that was a spiritual successor to banjo, right? Obviously, right, Banjo Kazooie, and yeah, I remember like just watching it and being disappointed. You know what I mean? Like I to the point where I didn't even want to play it because I didn't want to like. Which I wasn't even that big of a Banjo Kazooie fan, like because I'd never really played it until much later on. I played Conkers, I played Donkey Kong 64, and I think that was like most of my exposure to the rare 64 games. But Banjo Kazooie I didn't play until much later. I was actually an adult when I played those ones, and I it's like one of those things where like I get it, I get why people like this game, but at that point I had experienced too many modern 3D platformers. So I didn't get as much enjoyment out of it. I don't have that kind of emotional connection to it. But I know you played Banjo Kazooie when you were younger, right?
Right.
Okay.
Haven't we all?
So yeah. So like you probably have more of a connection to it than I do. So what is it that made Banjo Kazooie like kind of click, and like what was the miss on Ukulele's part?
I think you talk about soul. You talk about like a complete package, right? So it's when the game came out, what it offered versus its contemporaries, right? It was a groundbreaking 3D platformer with, obviously you had like the idea of controlling two characters that had two different kinds of movement options, right? So you had like Banjo who could climb and crawl. You had Kazooie who could do like the flutter jump and the fast walk or whatever out of the backpack.
The charge dash thing. Yeah.
Right. So you had the supporting cast. You had Mumbo Jumbo. You had Grunty. You had I forget their names. It's been a while since I've played it, but I did enjoy it when I was younger. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, I played it when I was younger because I loved Donkey Kong 64 so much.
But
Again,
Donkey
in
Kong
that
64 felt more locked down in comparison to Banjo Kazooie because of the fact that you had to switch Kongs to get to certain levels. I remember that was one of the big things where a lot of people said it felt more free to play Banjo Kazooie versus Donkey Kong.
Right. But for me, I loved those Donkey Kong characters more than I loved Banjo and Kazooie. Right.
Yeah.
So for me, like getting to play this game as a 3D platformer with Donkey Kong was sweet. Right. It's not to say that I didn't like Banjo and Kazooie, but I like Donkey Kong a lot more. Like that's my guy. So it was, obviously like that. Those games offered so much more, and you would have thought that the problem with Ukulele, I thought, was that they made a game that would have been really, really good on the N64 because that's what they were trying to harken back to. The problem is we've had 20 years, or at that point we had like 20 years of development in platformers. So you made a really great N64 platformer. You didn't make a really good 20 whatever what year did it come out again? I don't remember. Yeah, you didn't make a good
2016, something like that. I want to say, was it around then? Let me confirm that.
Yeah, 2017. You didn't make a good platformer in 2017. You made a good 2000 platformer. You didn't make a good
with 2017 graphics.
Right, exactly. You made a pretty good game that came out, and here it is, even better. 1998. Banjo Kazooie came out. So you made a really good late 90s, early 2000s platformer. You didn't make a good modern platformer. Because think about this. So Ukulele comes out in 2017, right? Super Mario Odyssey came out a couple months after.
Yeah. And even like if I'm gonna say like in terms of like previous games that came out before then, not from Nintendo, but like the Ratchet and Clank games. Like they made a million of them on the PS2 and PS3, and those were all very serviceable, but they were all modernized for the time, right? And it felt tighter, it felt more focused in terms of gameplay, right? And Ratchet and Clank, to be fair, at that point, we've had a long enough time with them that we have an emotional connection to these characters, right?
Right.
Versus Ukulele they're not Banjo-Kazooie, right? They're
Right.
not. But
and we know who they're trying to be.
yes, yeah,
Because they're just trying to make Banjo-Kazooie again.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too is like, yeah, I know we got Odyssey a couple months later. We still had both Galaxies. We still even had Sunshine that came out after that. We had Mario 3D World that came out after this, right? Or before this. So like you have this precedent of platformers that are fresh in people's minds, and then you deliver this, right?
Yeah.
That it's tough. Like it was tough basically to get what you got from Ukulele when it came out. And I know that's why people were so and I don't think the whole scenario surrounding like the Kickstarter and all that and all the things that happened outside behind the scenes helped the game when it finally did release. So not only did you get a game that was kind of disappointing, you got it after this entire like rigmarole of a development process, which I think made it even more disappointing.
Yeah. And a little bit of background for Ukulele, just because I mentioned before, with the games that I've recommended before already, was that this was developed by a group of former personnel from Rare, right? Like, in their press release and the Wikipedia page, that it was developed by a group of former key personnel from Rare. So they don't specify who they are, but safe to assume that these are people who were probably head developers or design leads or people who were like chief vision like leads, right, of what this game should be in regards to how it pays respects to the original Banjo-Kazooie series.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I understand why that could be. It's the argument of like, is it emulating its predecessors versus, like emulating it like to a T, right? Which it essentially was doing, right? Without properly innovating and adding more stuff to the modern sensibilities that we have now.
Exactly. Are you remaking this game, or are you paying homage to this game and all that it brought when it released, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of also what a lot of these soulless, when we talk about soulless, we talk about games that, didn't quite hit the mark. It's because they forgot, basically they just tried to remake the same game again. They didn't try to do what the game that they're paying homage to did, which was not just, be either the next or the first in a line of these games, but also bring something different to the table, right?
Yeah, it has to innovate. It can't just be like, oh, here's the same game again, just prettier. You know what I mean? Because we want more at this point.
Right.
It's like, unless the game itself is like the pinnacle of an experience, like, I'll say this. I know some people say this. I've heard this some of my other friends say this is controversial, but I don't think, in comparison to everything else around it, Mario 64 holds up anymore. Now, when I go back and play it, it's still very fun. I still enjoy the fuck out of it, right?
Uh-huh.
But, like, if you're going to tell me, oh, I liked Mario 64 better than Mario Odyssey, I'm going to be like, absolutely not. Because Mario Odyssey feels modern. You know what I mean? It's polished. It caters to a more modern idea of what a 3D platformer is supposed to be, including all of the movement. You know what I mean? Like, Mario 64, as much as I love that game, there's still a level of jank that we can see now. You know what I mean? And that jank is now utilized in how to play the game fast or properly or whatever you want to call it, right? So, another example is like GoldenEye.
Right.
Go back to play GoldenEye now. It is not a fun game. It is not a fun experience. It's nostalgic. It's nostalgic as all hell. And it's fun getting into the chaos of it. But you're not going to tell me that GoldenEye is a better experience than playing any modern first-person shooter.
No. GoldenEye was not just outdated. It became obsolete the day Halo 1 came out.
Yes. Yeah.
Because,
and also the better GoldenEye is just Perfect Dark, to be fair.
Right. I mean, there are games, unfortunately, like you said, that don't hold out the test of time.
Mm-hmm.
But what they brought, what they innovated, can't be forgotten.
Absolutely.
But I agree. So as somebody that has played Mario 64, like I get it. I played it recently.
Yeah, so have I.
Because I've played Mario Odyssey, it does feel not great, especially because I was playing it on the Switch. So like not playing this game on original hardware is tough because this game was designed for the Nintendo 64. It was designed for the controller.
And it's an old camera system on top of it too.
Correct, right. So it is rather frustrating when you're used to modern amenities like playing a game made for the system you're playing it on, right? Like it's to go right from Odyssey to 64 is tough, but you think about it, almost 30 years of innovation has happened between that game and the current crop of video games, just video games in general, right?
Yeah, it is not to disrespect the old title. It's just that understanding that our understanding of what a 3D platformer should be now has changed and shifted.
And but to give Mario 64 credit, the fact that it still holds up after 30 years with all these advancements is a testament to the people that made that game. I mean,
yes,
it's fantastic.
I've seen people do mods where they can make it so that the camera is no longer snaps like the C buttons used to make it do, and actually gave it like a modern camera scheme. That feels the game feels brand new again. You know what I mean? Like that's fantastic. It's just that depending on, again, we're looking at them in time capsules in like of the era that they came out in. That's specifically what we're trying to compare them to, and that's where the negatives start to show up a little bit more. And again, we love these games. It's just that, like, again, comparing them to now, it is a different experience because of the fact that yes, we have 30 years of development and like and of understanding of what a 3D platformer should be now.
For sure. Yeah.
That was a nice one. I like that one.
Yeah, you did good there.
Yeah. Okay. Back to the Mega Man recommendations here. I have mentioned this before, and I have gotten mad at our friend group before because of this one. 20XX and 30XX.
Yeah.
So developed and published by Battery Staple Games. I've met these guys at PAX multiple times now. They're fantastic people. They're great. I love this game. It is roguelite Mega Man X. It is just Mega Man X, but more of it. And that's all I want, honestly, from Mega Man X games, right? Good power, fun power-ups where your shots shoot like up, down, and forward at the same time.
Right.
Fast gameplay, fantastic sprite work in 30XX. 20XX used hand-drawn character models, which look like Flash games. I still loved it. And fantastic music. All of the energy from the OG Mega Man X games, basically. This also has co-op built in, which is awesome. You get to play, so you play as Nina with the arm cannon, that's your X stand-in, right? And Ace, who has the energy sword, that's your Zero.
Hell yeah.
The color palettes are pretty indicative. They are literally just blue and red. Movement is tight, really well balanced. The power-ups feel really good without being overpowered. There's always that, like, I'm not strong enough to have the power fantasy, right? Because I don't want that in Mega Man games. I want it to be challenging, right? Even though obviously having the extra power-ups gives you like a moment of like, oh shit, hell yeah, this works out perfectly for my run, right? Where like now I have a shotgun, like like a spread shot versus a single buster shot, right? And every shot has a charge shot variant on top of it, which is great. And then with 30XX, they're still iterating on it. 20XX, unfortunately, now the development is completely done on 20XX because they've fully moved over to 30XX. There's a mega mode in there, which is the levels are no longer procedurally generated. They are entirely generated in advance. They don't change on death, so it feels much closer to like a Mega Man game.
Right.
It's just like a level-based Mega Man game at that point. Unfortunately, no demo. But yeah, if you like Mega Man X, like not even like a recommendation, I'm telling you, go play 30XX. It is such a good experience. The co-op is fun and chaotic. The mini boss fights feel right. The proper boss fights feel fantastic. It's a roguelite, so you can have like more health. Certain things can kind of show up on beginning of run kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So it kind of changes up the gameplay as well from the beginning instead of having to like look for power ups kind of thing. 30XX is out on Steam and on Switch.
For sure.
Next one I've got here, again, there's going to be these two are, I think, a little more, not controversial, but these are going to be a little more of a break in the Mega Man fandom. The Battle Network games. I liked, again, I said before, I liked the first three. I started falling off from that point after that, from 4, 5, and 6. And I know there's the retro collection came out recently. Was it this year or was it that late last year? I think it was early this year. Either way.
I was going to say, if it's happened in the last 18, 19 months, I don't know.
Yeah.
So just forgive me.
But 2 games here. 2.5. One Step from Eden / Duelists of Eden. So this one's developed by Thomas Moon Kang and published by the Humble Bundle. Roguelike action game. So, the game itself is like card-based / power-up based, right? Like where you kind of get a randomized set of like attacks or power-ups available to you. On the grid-based combat system. Where you dodge and move to avoid attacks and stuff like that, and to line yourself up and attack enemies. So the deck building, there's a story progression that is choice based. So there's a branching paths there. Very fast, very intense. More of a bullet hell, kind of like the older Mega Man games, Mega Man Battle Network games. And Duelist of Eden is a spin-off, I guess, of itself, where it's more focused on the PvP fighting aspect with rollback implementation. No demo available in this game. And then the next game, in the last game of the Mega Man series that I'm going to talk about here is End Cycle Versus. I played this one at PAX this year. I got my ass whooped during the demo, but it was fun as shit. Developed by 12B3. I don't know if it's 12B3 or 12B3. And published by 12B3 and Hawthorne Games. So this is more of a fighting game. Again, kind of like Duelist of Eden. This is more focused on the fighting game aspect of the grids of the Battle Network style games. So attacks aren't randomly selected. You get to choose exactly what you're going to be using, available for your attacks. And there's also a neutral area in the middle. So, give you a little bit of reference here. In One Step from Eden or the Battle Network games, it was like a 3x3 that you're allowed to play on, while the opponents play on the opposite 3x3, right? This one has a 2x2 that is yours, a 2x2 that is in the middle, that is neutral, that you and your enemy are allowed to walk into, and then your enemy's side, 2x3. Sorry, 2x3. Yeah, 2x3 yours, 2x3 neutral, 2x3 enemy side. So you can kind of like walk right up to each other, in the middle ground, and even walk behind each other, kind of thing. You know what I mean? I believe this also has a rollback implemented already as well too. Again, I've not gotten as deep into this one, but I did try it at PAX, and I said before, I got slapped around during the demo. And again, more focused on the fighting game aspect, the PvP aspect of the Mega Man grid battle system. No demo, unfortunately, available on either one of these two as well. But the music's really good. The art style's really cool. They do have two different art styles. Check out which one you are more interested in. I said before, the One Step from Eden is more based on the roguelike card game, action game version of it, while End Cycle Versus is more focused on the 1v1 combat of it. But yeah, that's the end of my Mega Man section here for the ones that I recommend for spiritual successors. You got the next section? You got any more recommendations on your end?
No, I'm interested to see what you have next. I know you're more like in tune on this than I am. I had my bunch, so I'm here to listen and help people get these games into their libraries. So feel free to keep going here.
Okay, so this is my last one, and this is a series that I love. I spent so many hours playing this with Gabe. I grew up on this series, and I'm devastated that we only got 2 games from this series. Basically 2 games. Bushido Blade.
Hell yeah.
So Bushido Blade is a 3D fighting video game with a focus on realistic combat with a body damage system. No health bar, very minimal HUD, right? There's basically nothing there. And most clean hits cause instant death. It's basically one hit and you're dead. So there are 2 games here that I'm going to recommend. One I can very, very strongly recommend, because when the game came out, it was kind of mixed early on, but now it's still in early access, but the devs have been really, really pushing out updates and making the game kind of more fine-tuned and more characters and stuff like that. The first game is called Hellish Court.
Okay.
Developed by Kubold. So it is led by Jakub Kisiel, who is a former ex-senior animator for Witcher 3. And they have stated that this game is heavily inspired by Bushido Blade. So it is a physics-based, realistic 3D sword fighting game set in 17th century Poland. Side view camera, right? There's parrying. Imagine if For Honor didn't have a bunch of bullshit in it.
Right. Give me the name again.
Hellish Court.
There it is.
So yeah, again, depending on where you hit, you can kill in one strike. Modernized gameplay, modernized mocap, right? So the game, doing wrong. Bushido Blade still looks fantastic to this day. You know, even though it's only like 7 pixels in there, but obviously we're getting a much prettier experience here, right? All of the outfits are 3D scanned from actual historic outfits that would have been worn in 17th century Poland. So it's it's almost like a historical game at the same time. What's the term HEMA, like something medieval martial arts or whatever it is, you know what I mean? Like people who learn how to fight with like swords, staves, glaives, kind of that whole thing. This is basically what this game kind of is.
Historical European martial arts.
There we go. Thank you.
Thanks, Google.
Yeah, like, so it's obviously very reminiscent of that whole thing. I'm sure if you scrolled on YouTube long enough, you find the guys who talk about swords and staves and axes, right? Yeah, this is basically it without hurting yourself.
Nice.
Again, this game came out in rough shape early when it first came out, and now I'm seeing the reviews are much more positive. There is no demo, but I have played this, I believe, at PAX or one of the other smaller conventions that I went to. That's where I kind of like saw this, and I was like, okay, I want to see if these guys are gonna be anywhere. And they showed up at one of the conventions that I went to, and or it was just a booth that had the game available on the PC, I guess. But this game's great. Again, really scratches that itch of the Bushido Blade, like high risk, high reward type one hit kill gameplay.
For sure.
Yeah, if we're talking about fucking footsies, this is the fucking game. You know what I mean? Like, very, very fun. I really like. I miss Bushido Blade a lot. This is the first game in a while that kind of gives that same experience. I was hoping For Honor was going to give that experience, but For Honor is more of a 2-person Souls-like game, if I can call it that. But don't get me wrong, it was fun for what it was. For Honor was great because I remember I paid $6 for it when it was on sale. But I got slapped around by a fucking samurai, and I couldn't do anything because I didn't know the game. But and that one has like directional blocking from like top, down, left, right kind of thing, right? And that's how you parry properly. This one is more like you know which attacks you're throwing at depending on which character you're using, which weapon you're using. Again, no demo, still in early access, but if you are craving that Bushido Blade type of gameplay, check it out. And then the other game I'm going to throw out here, this one is not as well recommended currently at the moment. It came out early this year, but the devs are still working on the game. So honestly, they should have released this in early access and allowed people to, essentially, they should put this on early access, right? As much as people will argue that early access is bad for video games, right? Done well, I think that people would have been able to try this out, give recommendations, give their advice, give their 2 cents of like what they're looking for in this game, but from my understanding, they are working on this game still. It's still being actively worked on. It is a game called Die by the Blade.
Okay.
I think this might be very up your alley, at least aesthetic wise. So this is developed by Grindstone, Triple Hill Interactive, and Toko Midori Games. And is published by Grindstone. So this is a samurai punk aesthetic, realistic sword fighting game.
Yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah, I'm a weeb, so I'm stoked for this game. Again, it's technically already out, but I'm waiting for it. I'm hoping that the devs keep working on it. So this one has some aspects that are very similar, very, very similar to Bushido Blade, with the different stances and the different attack angles depending on which stance you're in. The feinting is a very big part of this gameplay. So if you played again, kind of like For Honor, where that's obviously a way for you to kind of bait people out to block a particular direction or whatever, right?
Oh,
or
yeah, FEINT, not FAINT.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, FEINT, yeah. With punishing, spacing, obviously same as any other fighting game, right? But And also the movements and the move set is also dependent on the weapon, like Bushido Blade, right? Because remember in Bushido Blade, if I brought out a katana, you could have two to four different stances, right? Or if I bust out a naginata with a spear, right? I'm gonna have one or two stances with that, and that has a different matchup essentially at that point. And I'll have like a stabbing attack versus like a hacking attack, or if I bring out like a Nodachi with the giant long katana, it's like very slow, but it's like much longer reach, but I'm less mobile after I swing it doing the wide attacks kind of thing, right? So movement dependent on the weapon. Again, aesthetically, I love the aesthetic of it. It's cyberpunk samurais basically. Again, hoping that it'll keep improving. And the best part about this, there is a demo for this game.
Yes.
So if you at least want to try it out, you can actually go fucking try it without having to commit to it. People are leaving the reviews and like mentioning what they have issues with, what they want from this game, what things that they can fine tune. I would like this game to keep iterating and fixing things, and I'm hoping that this game is going to be super solid within a year or two, kind of like what Hellish Court did. Because Hellish Court again came out rough and is now pretty well received overall. I think Hellish Court is like very positive now. Die by the Blade is currently mixed. And again, if they can get to mostly positive, good. Get to very positive like Hellish Court is, even better. And again, both these games are still technically they probably should have both been in early access. Which Hellish Court is in, but I'm saying this game should have been early access too, so they can at least get the feedback from the player base. But yeah, I think that's it for me. I mean, obviously, there's more game series that I would have liked to mention. We've definitely gone over a couple more of them, right? Because we brought them up in our natural conversation during this episode. Right. Is there anything else that you would say would be like your holy grail? Because I remember you mentioned a couple of your personal ones. Is there one that stands above all else? You're like, I want this to come out.
Oh man, to get a remake, like a fan remake of a game. Let me think. That's a good question. Do you have one in mind?
See, the thing is, for me, is I've gotten a lot of like scratch the itch already, right, from a lot of the games that I play. Because again, I'm always like looking for like, oh, I liked this game, and this is inspired by that game. Absolutely, I'm good to go. For me, is I would love to get a Prince of Persia. Like not the OG one, the PS1 Prince of Persia. Because Ubisoft's never gonna get around to fucking remaking the goddamn game. But because Prince of Persia was like the iteration of that like kind of stand in the middle while everyone else attacks you kind of gameplay. That combat, right? Like the Arkham Asylum combat, Assassin's Creed combat, right? If I can get something like that where it's like essentially everything is a movement puzzle where you're running around and grabbing on stuff and hitting that kind of like the levers and stuff like that. If I can get that, like a modernized version of that without the bullshit and the fucking terrible decision making behind Ubisoft's bullshit, I would love that.
Mm-hmm.
Which one was the Star Wars fighting game? That's another one. The one that came out on Xbox.
It was like,
PS2.
yeah, Masters of Terras Kasai.
Was it that one?
Yeah. Masters of Terras Kasai. I do have one, by the way. I know exactly the game that we will never, that we'll never get again, but I would love to see again. Mm-hmm. This number one would be a new Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist of the Roses. A grid-based card game. Mm-hmm. With effects and a terrain and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. We'll never get another game like that again. And then
is Yu-Gi-Oh! Just too far out from where that would have been at this point?
Yeah, so they kind of, early on when they didn't have a specific kind of idea of what the game was really going to look like, they tried all these cool different things like this. Mm-hmm. Now that they kind of have figured out what, like, number one, what sells, and then number two, what works, basically you're just going to get battle simulators for the rest of time. I feel like you'll never get, obviously I think a Forbidden Memories redo would be cool, but like you'd have to come up with like a whole new card system.
Yeah.
Duelist of the Roses, I feel like is a bit more, like a bit more possible. And then obviously like another Def Jam Fight for New York specifically, because it took kind of that that Aki engine that Def Jam Vendetta was based on, and kind of like opened it up a little bit more. And you had, you had like kickboxing, you had martial arts, you had different kinds of strikes and ways to do damage to people. You had you could pick up beer bottles off of the speakers. You could throw people into the crowd and they'd push them back. It wasn't like a traditional wrestling, but it still had all those same hits that those old Aki games had. So I'd love to see one of those. Having it be rappers or not, just a game with that gameplay style. Obviously,
would be really nice.
The main draw was the pop culture figures that you could play as. Yeah. But like, just to have it, even now, like you could probably do it now with like streamers and people like in that online internet culture. You could definitely do that, because I would love to just fight like Kai Cenat and like I Show Speed and people like that. I should probably throw a white guy in there too, like Penguinzo and XQC. Yeah. Like I'd love to just beat the shit out of XQC. So those are my two.
I've got a couple other, like I can throw these out. I haven't delved too deep into these, but there's been like I don't know if you noticed, but there's been like a resurgence of like the PS1 aesthetic, right? In terms of like games that are currently out on Steam. Like there's been like 2 or 3 Resident Evil style games that came out, but like more like top down versions of them, were very slow, very tense all the time, have come out recently. I forgot the names of them, unfortunately. There's Bomb Rush Cyberpunk is literally Jet Set Radio.
Yes.
That's like, and again, I had no connection to Jet Set Radio until basically the episode with Buffa. Like I never really played the game a lot when I was younger, or if at all, right? But Bomber Cyberpunk kind of became that, and which I know people are still excited for the remake that's coming out of the original Jet Set Radio, right? But like it throws me up. I'm like, well, Bomber Cyberpunk is already out, and it is that. There was a parkour version of Bomb Rush of a spin-off or spiritual successor of the Jet Set Radio game that came out forever ago as well, that I played. I forgot the name of it. It's somewhere buried in my Steam library. But that was another one too. Hover, that was what it was called. So it had, again, it was free running. It was parkour version of Jet Set. One series that I don't think needs one, but they have. I think it would be nice to see another one of these. Metal Slug.
Yeah, I feel like I always see, like, oh, we're making a new Metal Slug game. We're all inspired by Metal Slug, and then they're just all the same.
Yeah,
it sucks for them, for the people that love those games too. But I just feel like nobody has
more than just
exactly. Nobody's innovated on Metal Slug outside of like the actual Metal Slug people.
Yeah. That's I would like to see, like, I don't know what it would need to make it more modernized or have a spin on it, but I feel like something like that would be very nice to have like a spiritual successor to, even though they're technically still making games, right?
Correct.
Something along those lines. I think would be very cool to experience. Tenchu. That's another one I was thinking of before. We kind of have something similar to it with we have plenty of stealth games, obviously, right? But Tenchu has a little bit of like that Japanese mysticism involved with it as well too.
Correct.
So there's a game that I recommend called Aragami. Yes. Where you teleport using shadows, so it has a little bit of that magic. But at the end of the day, it is just a stealth game where you're just slicing bad samurai neck while you're a good ninja, or good, you know what I mean, quote unquote good, basically. But Origami is a very fun stealth game, and Origami 2 came out also as well too. So there's also that. So that's another good stealth game. But again, like something along the lines of that Tenchu gameplay would be very, very fun, because I do remember Tenchu 1 was very grounded, 2 was relatively grounded until you got a little bit magic-y at the end, right? Tenchu 3 went all out with the magic stuff. But I think like a proper like ninja stealth game would be very, very fun to play again.
Right. Before we wrap, I do also want to bring people's attention to a few of our past episodes. If you're into spiritual successors and homages. We did Pseudo Regalia, which was, which is like an ode to 3D platformers. We did Shovel Knight, which is an ode to old school 2D platformers. Did we do Mark of the Ninja? Because I feel like I always want to shove Mark of the Ninja down your throat.
We definitely do want to talk about it at one point.
Yeah.
There's just a... Oh man, that I would love to get another one of those games.
I know. Yeah, go play Mark of the Ninja if you're listening to this.
Go play Mark of the Ninja. We'll talk about it eventually.
Right, exactly. I'm going through here, just trying to think of. Oh, technically, Scratch and Melody was a Parappa the Rapper, and I'm Jammer Lammy.
Yes,
spiritual successor.
Yep.
A lot of fun. I haven't actually, forgive me. It's been a wild 19 months here. I haven't actually followed up on that. So definitely, if it's out, go support it. It's fantastic. And yeah, we should definitely do Mark of the Ninja sometime because I love that game. I've played it multiple times.
I would love to gush about how awesome Mark of the Ninja was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is a fun conversation. This because again, the gaming space is just a weird spot right now. You obviously had a solo episode about it, right? You focus more on the journalism side as well too. But in terms of the big AAA space, we're in a weird spot, rough spot.
Yes. Where
studios are closing left and right, or getting absorbed into the typical blockbuster slop. I'm just gonna call it slop.
Right.
Your yearly Call of Duties, your yearly Assassin's Creed games. You know what I mean? That Prince of Persia, the Metroidvania Prince of Persia game, that studio got shut down and got absorbed into the next fucking Assassin's Creed team, from my understanding. That was actually a fun, innovative twist on Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, and then because they didn't sell to Ubisoft standards, they shut the team down and spread them out across the different teams to make more Assassin's Creed or more whatever open world game that they're trying to put out, basically.
Exactly.
So
it's bullshit.
Yeah, and but that's why I kind of want to focus on this, where it's okay, these are mostly indie teams, right? That give you that can give you that same kind of experience you were looking for in terms of the games that we loved growing up, with a modernized take on it, right? With modern features, updated gameplay, a new twist on it, and it feels nostalgic, it feels familiar, but there's still fresh stuff added to it that makes it so it, you know what I mean? It doesn't feel like what we said before, where it doesn't feel dated.
Correct.
These are modern, without losing the actual soul or what made that game good in the first place. Here are a couple options for scratching that itch if you were looking for a couple of these types of games.
Yeah, for sure. I think they're out there. The problem is, like you said, trying to traverse all the AAA slop that's been coming out, all the fucking remakes and all the remasters and all the, annual releases to try to find them.
Which is funny because there's twists on them that aren't the exact same game anymore.
Right, exactly. And it's not just, hey, it looks prettier and you get one of the DLC packs that came out after the fact included in the remaster, right? These are new games made by a new team that was inspired, but not necessarily trying to, ideally not trying to copy the game that they're inspired by, right? Integrating new aspects into this game that we love and making a whole new experience based on that, right? So I'm in favor of it. I'd love to see more. If you're listening to this and you have games that we're talking about that we missed, send them our way, please, so we can play them.
Yeah, and absolutely, if you have games that you would like to see,
yes,
a spiritual successor to, let us know. I'm sure, again, the reason why we're doing this is because we're passionate about these types of games, right? The
Correct.
games that we grew up on. And we're nostalgic for them, but we want to see if these games can exist in our current sensibilities of what games are supposed to be. And again, luckily, a lot of fantastic developers and artists and people with visions are making really, really good games right now. again, let us know what you guys would like to see a remake of or a spiritual successor to. We really appreciate you guys for tuning in for this episode. Share us with a friend. Again, we're on all the major audio streaming platforms. We are on YouTube. We'll try to get more content out there.
I promise.
Soon.
I'm trying.
We're
I was trying.
We're very busy.
Yeah. I had to take a break for a minute, but we're back. Hopefully, I'll be back. So let's do it.
We really appreciate the support from you guys. Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care.
See you then.
Here's an idea. Don't do that. And also add waifus. That's how we make every game better. I should be a game developer.
You should.